One of the things that pretty much all cultures do with words is put them together in stories. Narration of events that has some kind of deeper meaning to carry that isn't carried as well if you just put a bunch of propositions together like Romans. You got to put the story together like Luke. And so I began to think, the whole Bible is a macro, mega story of redemption. Creation, fall, calling out a people of Israel, promising a Messiah, hero Messiah comes, crucified, accomplishes redemption, rises from the dead, commissions a people, people penetrate the world, Messiah crashes back in, brings it all to glorious consummation in the new heaven and the new earth. That's reality. So history and events and happenings are the way God created the world to be. And then we narrate that with stories. And we tell our children stories, and all people love to hear stories. I married into a family that told stories. We didn't tell stories in my family. Daddy came home and he would tell some stories about the gospel triumphs in his evangelistic meetings, but by and large, a downtime evening was Scrabble. We were thinking how to make words. We weren't telling stories. This family never played games. Noel's family doesn't play games. We'd eat supper, squirrel or something, and then for an hour and a half, 2 hours, we sit there and somebody would say, "Hey, Rolf, you remember the time Pamela poured a BB gun at you when you were little or something?" And then Rolf starts into this long story and he narrates it down to the details. And I'm sitting there thinking, this is unusual. They're just taking turns telling 5 or 10 minute stories around this dinner table. So cultures all over the world do that sort of thing. It's just in us pretty deeply. And the Bible is filled with them. So I thought, okay, that's something we should really tackle. Should we use stories? Are stories kind of a threat to truth? It's not, Romans. What should we do with stories? It's a very common thing to talk about in theology today. So as I thought about it, I said, yeah, let's tackle this. I want us to figure out their place and how to use them and how to be blessed by them and how to not be scared off by them and how to have cautions in their taking over maybe and excluding the expository dimensions of literature. I thought, now who could tackle this? Who's thought about this? Who's done this? And when I was at Bethel, they called it Bethel College in those days, from 1974 to 1980. It's now Bethel University. Just next door, an office or two down, was a young literature professor named Daniel Taylor. And we were friends. And I think one of the reasons we were friends because I was a lit major. I love literature. That's who I was. I thought for a long time I would be a theologically informed Daniel Taylor, teaching literature in a college somewhere. I went to seminary thinking that might be my future until other things got a hold of me. But there he was. He was kind of doing what I thought I might have done someday, and we were friends. And now, here we are 30 years later or whatever, and Dan has thought a lot about that. He's written a book called Tell Me a Story, The Life-Changing Power of Stories. That's a very provocative title. When I thought, okay, Dan's the guy. Dan, I want him to come. Now, he's not a trained theologian. I knew that. And I said, I want you to talk about your reflection upon the power of story. You know that the Christian story is the main story, and all other stories are going to be more or less reflections of that story. Come and tell us about story. Give us illustrations of story. And I wrote him, and lo and behold, I didn't know whether he'd be willing to come, and he was, and I was thrilled. And so with Daniel Taylor's help and with God's help, we're going to explore the whole dimension of what do words become and how do they function when they become story.